This is the final blog in a 10-part series that explains why the Shohei Ohtani signing is bad for baseball. I'll end with one final radical proposal and a personal mission statement. Finally, doesn't it seem a bit more than unfair that Ohtani and Freeman and Betts are going to be eligible for the Baseball Hall of Fame 5 years after they retire, and yet we're not inducting Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Roger Clemens, and a number of other legends of the game? Take Pete Rose, for instance. There is not one shred of evidence that Pete Rose, through misconduct, ever altered any baseball game anywhere by as much as a run, a base hit, or even a ball strike count. Baseball is punishing Pete Rose for something that happened back in 1919. Baseball is punishing Pete Rose because of something that might happen in the future. In terms of what happened on the field of play, isn't Pete Rose innocent of everything? I guess he's being punished to protect the integrity of the game. Meanwhile, with the deferred contracts, Ohtani and Freeman and Betts have off the field skewed the balance of baseball for the next 10 years. I repeat, Pete Rose never affected any game other than by his play on the field. Meanwhile, baseball's second or third richest team, the winningest team in baseball for more than a decade, signs the most sought-after free agent perhaps ever, and signs him to a contract that is deferred until his obligation to them is through, uniting him with other deferred contract MVPs, and the three of them lobby the next biggest free agent available to sign with their team. And that signing is followed up with the procurement of yet still more signings and extensions and even more deferments, all of which has been made possible by the three MVPs time traveling their paychecks. And baseball protects its integrity by vilifying Pete Rose? Would you say the sport is being penny wise and pound foolish? And what about Bonds and Clemens and A-Rod? Explain to me why steroid users are so much worse for the integrity of the game than all these deferred Dodger contracts. I'd rather face a team with one juiced-up superstar than a team that manipulates the luxury tax and signs 3 additional star-caliber players, and then more as a result. Steroid use happened, and no one did anything about it until it was too late. Isn't it happening again? No one protected the integrity of the game then, and no one is protecting it now. It's time to put Rose, Bonds, A-Rod, and Clemens, these super achievers, into the Hall of Fame. I'm not saying vote them in. I'm saying put them in, by fiat, without a vote. I'll add one more name to the list, Rafael Palmeiro, a man who has over 3,000 hits and 500 home runs, a very rare achievement. The greatest Hall of Fame class is said to be the first, with Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson, and Walter Johnson. Wouldn't these 5 be just as good? Just for good measure, we can add one more. Shoeless Joe Jackson, one of the members of the infamous 1919 White Sox. In the 1919 World Series, Shoeless Joe led both teams in hitting and set a record for base hits that stood for 50 years. There was never any evidence that Shoeless Joe received a dime. His team's conspirators said he wasn't in on the fix, but he was barred from baseball for life, apparently for the crime of knowing about the fix and saying nothing. I read about Ohtani and Freeman and Betts using their deferred salaries in Dodger cap room to recruit Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and can't help but think. Collusion to fix the World Series can come in many different forms. Silence is just one of them. My mission statement. I am not a baseball scholar. I use the internet for my research. I believe every statement to be true, but verify everything. I'm a 77-year-old man going through my so-called end-of-life bucket list. Starting a blog is on the list. I hope one day to publish a collection of my essays, also on the list. I've written a novel that no one has ever read. Finding beta readers and self-publishing is also on my list. I wrote a play during the pandemic. I've had one staged reading. Unfortunately, my lead actress had to bow out. I would like to find several senior citizens in my geographical area who have thought about stage performing as a lark, but probably haven't taken a significant step yet in that direction and are able and willing to have a go at the adventure of doing a stage play for real. We'll discover each new step as we go. I'm also a spoken word performer who has focused on personal stories, children's stories, and an adult history of the American Revolution. Moreover, at one time in my life, I was a stand-up comic. One of my friends from that time period, recently retired, convinced me of the notion that we gave up too quickly, 7 years, and on December 10th we made an agreement to each write a comedy routine and give it another go. The next day, December 11th, I opened a newspaper and encountered the Ohtani story. I chose to write jokes about this as opposed to the other events of the day, which included a confrontation between China and the Philippines over who owned a coral reef island in the Pacific Ocean. I went with the Ohtani story, although I certainly did see parallels between the two situations and considered uniting them. So everything you just heard in the baseball essay started out as a comedy routine that focused on the Ohtani signing, and the ideas kept on coming and outgrew the original intent. I retain all copyrights to everything I've written. I retain all copyrights to everything I've spoken. I retain all copyrights to everything I've written and spoken. Also, for the moment, I prefer to remain anonymous. However, I suppose that circumstance won't last long. As I said earlier, I would like to connect with beta readers and stage performers, etc. A few final comments about me. I currently work as a dance instructor, mostly for senior citizens age 50 and above. I've kept a journal every day for what is about to become 35 years, and I have a young volunteer who is educating me on how to navigate the internet. More to come later. Adam is incorrigible. P.S. My log will be about my efforts to promote my artistic endeavors. Thank you.